So I'm gonna mute. It looks like John started recording, so whenever you're ready.
Sounds good. All right. Well, welcome everyone. So glad you guys are able to join us today. I am Ryan Cloutier. I am the Principal Security Consultant for SecurityStudio. What we're going to talk about today are life skills and specifically digital life skills. And these are the things that you need to know yourselves as educators, as parents, as participants and humans in the world in 2020. And these skills are important to keep yourself safe, but also to keep your students safe and your children safe, and even your parents, if you have aging parents. The goal here today is to learn the skills needed to keep yourself safe from cybercrime. So quick introduction as to who we are. We are SecurityStudio. We are security experts on a mission. We are a values-driven, mission-driven, vision-driven organization. Everything we do at SecurityStudio is rooted in our mission, which is to fix the broken information security industry. It's a small but lofty objective. And we want to do that because we realize that we're moving into a digital first era where every aspect of our regular, normal, everyday life now is conducted digitally, whether it's attending virtual events like this, when we reopen this fall, trying to teach our students. We know that digital is going to play a huge role in that, whether we're partial open, full open, or remote. Computers and technology is still a key part of educating our kids these days. Doctors, shopping, dating, you name it, it's done online now. And what we haven't yet done is address a lot of those issues that would allow us to navigate this new digital life safely. Quick introduction for myself, like I mentioned, I'm Ryan Cloutier. I am a certified information systems security professional. What that basically means is that I possess the highest accreditation in the information security industry. Just to give you some perspective, there are about 140,000 of us worldwide. To date, around 4 million people have taken the exam. So as you can imagine, it is very difficult to get. It is very difficult to maintain. Unlike a bachelor's degree, this only lasts for 3 years and you have to recertify and be peer supported. I am now this slide's a little out of date, former chairperson of the COSIN cybersecurity program. Due to my change in employers, my position with COSIN is shifting from a full-time chair to now a vendor support position. I'm also the cybersecurity advisor to the Student Data Privacy Consortium and the cybersecurity advisor to the Global Education Privacy Standard, as well as a handful of other organizations and groups that I volunteer with on the side. So what is personal risk? Personal risk is anything that exposes you to the risk of harm, injury, or losing something of value. Most of us understand personal risk. It's something that we deal with every day in our lives, from getting up and trying to find our way to the restroom in the dark, to driving our car down the road, to maybe getting some food from a food truck, right? We take on these personal risks and we do this fairly informed as to what that impact will be to us. But then we get into digital risk. Well, what is digital risk? It's anything digital that exposes you to the risk of harm, injury, or losing something of value. And this is where the majority of us struggle, in part because digital in the timeline of human history is relatively new. Really, the internet's only been around for about 25, 30 years. And really even a shorter time frame for how we've really adjusted our lives. So if we look at only 13 years ago, the iPhone was invented. So it's barely even a teenager. And yet no piece of technology has had more of a dramatic impact on how we conduct our lives as a human. Again, shopping, dating, eating, teaching, I mean, you name it. We're all doing it online now. That trend is not going to go away. And that's why it's important to understand a few things. So I'm going to cover a few facts, and then we're going to dive a little bit into, what do scams look like? What should you be on the lookout for? What are the skills that you need to be safe in the digital world? So A couple of facts. 43% of fraud victims are in age group 20 to 29. So what this means is that we've already had a generation that did not get the necessary skills needed to avoid being victimized online, to avoid cybercrime. 23% of victims that have experienced some type of fraud wind up with some residual financial expense that is not reimbursed by an insurance company or the company that maybe lost your data that allowed the scammers to fraud you. 18% of all the fraud reported was imposter scams. So this is where someone is pretending to be someone else. Maybe they're pretending to be the superintendent. Maybe they're pretending to be the parent of a student. Maybe they're pretending to be Barack Obama and Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, and they want to trade you Bitcoins. These are what we call imposter scams, okay? So far, $1.48 billion lost to scams. Why that matters to you is that ultimately winds up at the shelf. That ultimately winds up in your Amazon shopping cart. Companies are not eating this expense. They're passing it on to us, the consumer. This is taking resources away from our organizations, from our schools and our districts. It's taking money away from us as individuals. And if we don't start to change our behavior now, this number will only increase exponentially. So it's really important for us to treat our digital life as real as our physical. So I get asked a lot, who's responsible? Isn't it IT's responsibility? Isn't the district's technology or the superintendent or the school board or someone else? And the answer is no. You and you alone are responsible. Just like in your physical safety, you're responsible for you. No one else is responsible for you. Your risk is very personal. You know, when we think about risk, I'll give you an example. I myself, I enjoy some higher risk activities, things like skydiving, driving, racing around the track, driving fast, blacksmithing, welding. I like to work with fire. These things are high risk activities. I have a lot of friends that are like, no, thanks, man. I'll stay on the ground and support you from down here. I'm not jumping out of a perfectly good working airplane. I choose to take on that risk. It is my personal choice. They choose not to. That is their personal choice. And each one of us are going to approach risks a little bit differently. So it is a very personal thing. Our decisions can impact others, but it is ultimately our responsibility to protect ourselves from crime. This is the same thing that we do at home today when we have security lighting. Perhaps we have surveillance cameras. Maybe we pay for a burglar alarm monitoring service. These are all steps that we're taking to try to protect ourselves from crime. But when we get online, a lot of times it's difficult for us to know, what does danger look like? And a lot of times danger looks like a survey to learn about your personality traits or what your favorite color is, or are you a watermelon, a banana, or a slice of cake? That's actually very dangerous. That is giving information to the criminals who will then in turn use that to attack you. So it's important to understand your personal risk exposure, okay? So as we get started, it's about step one. What is your personal risk exposure? Are you using IoT in your home? So Alexa, smart speakers, smart lighting, smart surveillance cameras, right? What digital things are you doing, and what digital devices do you have that could represent a risk? I'll give you one from just the last 2 weeks. So about 2 weeks ago, some security researchers discovered that if they sent a piece of code to a smart charger for a smartphone, so these are the new chargers that are smart and they're supposed to be the rapid chargers, they were actually able to cause that to start on fire. So let's think about that for a second. Someone can now start your home on fire over the internet. That should be really scary. It's really scary to me. It should be really scary to you. But I don't want you to live in fear. I want you to be aware that that's a risk that exists. And then you have to decide for yourself whether that's a risk you're comfortable with. Myself, I'm not comfortable with that. I have a very dumb home because I'm not comfortable with the risk that smart devices in my house present. But I have plenty of other friends and family members who are very comfortable with that and have all kinds of smart things in their home. Give you a little quick story about smart homes. I have a friend of mine, a couple of years ago, he put together this great smart home, and he was so proud, and he said, Ryan, it's super secure, and I bet you can't hack it. And I said, are you sure? And he goes, yep, I bet you can't hack it. Now, no doing any funny stuff, no, coordinating with my wife or my kids or anything like that. I said, no problem. And he says, okay, bet you can't hack it. I said, I bet you I can. And I walked up to his front door and I said, hey, Siri, unlock the front door. I was instantly in his home. He immediately uninstalled all that stuff. He was a little upset with me. He had spent a lot of money. But once he saw how easy it was for me to get in, it was no longer a risk that he was comfortable taking on. The other key area here is to educate yourself on the scams. And we're going to do that a little bit of that today. But the scams are constantly evolving. So, there are resources out there through the Federal Trade Commission. The FBI has some resources available that let you know what the latest scam of the week is. Your number one defense to cyber criminals is knowing their tactics, knowing what the scams are that are out there. The next thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure your devices are up to date. This week, I just bought the new Lego Super Mario set. You can tell from my background, I'm a big Lego fan. And the very first thing that happened is I get this little Lego Mario out, and it turns out it's a computer with Bluetooth. And as soon as I pair it to my phone, it needs an update. So now my little Lego toy needs to be kept up to date. Otherwise, it presents a risk to me. If I don't keep that device up to date, then a bad guy could exploit that device or use a flaw in that device, in my phone or in my smart thermostat or any of these things that might be in your home. They can exploit that to then gain access to your home network. And this matters more now than ever because we're all working and schooling from home. And so the bad guys are now targeting us at home very aggressively. And one of the number one things we can do to help make that very hard for them is keeping our devices up to date. The next thing we're going to want to do is monitor our accounts and our financials. At least monthly, you should be going through your bank statements, through your credit card statements, and what you're looking for are unusual charges. Those charges could be in small amounts, even in some cases a penny. There's a scam out there where they take a penny out of the account every month. And if you do that for 10 million people over several years, that's a lot of money. So you're looking for those small charges. You're looking for unusual purchase times. In my house, it's not unusual for there to be a Target.com purchase for $500 at 1 in the morning. But in your home, that may be unusual. So what you're looking for in your accounts is there any activity that I'm not expecting, any purchases that I'm just not 100% on? If you are using a debit card online, this can present other challenges. Debit cards are not treated with the same legal protection as a credit card. The short way to say that is, as far as the banks are concerned, a debit card is your money. A credit card is the credit card company's money. So Visa, Discover, MasterCard, American Express, Diners Club, if you still have one of those. The law says that a credit card company must prove that you were negligent or at fault for the fraud in order for you to be held financially accountable. A debit card is treated as cash. The bank has absolutely no obligation whatsoever to help you. A lot of good banks will, but it's a lengthy process. It can be expensive, and sometimes you will not get all of the expenses reimbursed. So monitoring your accounts for unusual activity is a great way to keep your money safe, to detect something unusual early on when you can dispute it. And it'll just, help you have a better idea of what's going on so that you've got a better idea of when something unusual happens. And then the last piece I'm going to say here is what I call the security triple check. So the human mind has this uncanny ability to fill in the blanks. It will see what it thinks should be there, not necessarily what is actually there. So for example, if you get a phishing email and the name is Nicole Pruden, but it's got 2 E's, you're not going to see that second E the first time you look at it, most times. So the security triple check is this. It's look at it, physically turn away, physically turn your eyes away from the screen, look back, and then do that one more time. Look away and look back. Now you've looked at it 3 times. And the reason you want to physically look away is it will actually force your brain to take a new snapshot, to take a new look at what you're seeing. More often than not, on that second or third look is when that extra letter will pop out to you, or when that misspelling will pop out. The other thing I would tell you for the security triple check is if it involves a request for information or money that you did not initiate. So you get an email from the superintendent, says, hey, I need the W-2s. You get an email from your bank, hey, can you confirm your account number? Anything like that, if you did not initiate it, I want you to stop, immediately stop, and then find the public number for the person. So if it's the superintendent, go into the staff directory, find their public office number, and call them at that number. If it's your bank, take your debit card out of your billfold, look at the 800 number on the back, and call that number. Okay, this will help you to prevent being the victim of crime. You can stop criminals in their tracks if you slow down just a little bit and check the facts. Do that triple check. If it's money or information being requested, ask yourself, have I ever been asked to do this before? If the answer is no, that's a red flag. Is it, what is the consequences of this? Are they asking me for data that's not mine? And in your cases, as teachers and as educators, if someone's asking for student data, that again is a red flag, even if it looks like it's your colleague just down the hall. A good way to verify that is to do the triple check by getting up, going down the hall, looking that person in the eye and asking them. Now, obviously in COVID, that doesn't work as well. So that's where I would encourage you to use video chat. Jump on a quick hangout call with them. Jump on a quick Zoom with them. Just find a way to verify that that human really asked you for that thing. And if you do this, I guarantee you 98% of the time, you're going to find out they did not ask you for that information. That wasn't really them. So doing the triple check can help keep you safe. So how do you know your risk? Well, it starts with, are you asking the right questions before you're clicking or sharing info? You might be asking, how do I learn what my risks are? What are the things that I should know to keep myself safe from crime? Or how do I stay safe from cybercrime? And what are the things that I should know to be looking out for? The easiest way to do this is by taking the S2 Me. And Nicole actually has a session at the end of today, keeping yourself safe online. I highly encourage you guys to go to that session and check out. I'm not going to go very deep into the S2 Me. I'm just going to touch on it quickly. But basically what it is a free personal risk assessment that's going to tell you what risks you have right now at home, what types of risks you're facing for use of Wi-Fi or use of devices or home computing, safe internet practices. And it will give you recommendations on how to improve. So if you do have a risk, it'll let you know what that risk is, and it will tell you how to make adjustments to reduce that risk or eliminate that risk. All right, and it is absolutely free. I will have a link at the end, but I do encourage you to go to Nicole's session. She'll cover it in much more detail than I'm going to today. So I'm going to move on into phishing and spam. So this is really the #1 way that the bad guys are trying to get at you, okay? Phishing simply is a fraudulent email attempting to gain some type of information or get you to take some kind of action. Spear phishing is a very targeted email. So it's attempting to target you as an individual. So instead of it saying dear customer, it'll say dear Ryan. Okay, and that's spear phishing. A lot of times that's going to be targeted at your superintendents and other administrators, people in the finance department, because they're trying to get their logins to gain access to those systems. Then we have whaling. Whaling is just phishing, going for the school board members, going for the CFO, going for the high profile employees. And then we have impersonation. And that's going to be where it appears to come from a legitimate site for legitimate reasons, but really isn't. And this is the most common you're going to see. So I'm going to quickly go through a few real world examples so that you can see firsthand what this stuff looks like. So for example, this is a very popular and very successful phishing attack. It's saying that my Netflix has expired. Well, in COVID, the only thing scarier than telling me my Netflix has expired is telling me I have COVID. So I'm already in a heightened sense of, oh man, I got to take action. I need to take action right now. That's a red flag. Anytime something is super urgent, that is actually time to slow down and show more caution. So here, Netflix is saying, click here to verify your account. Do not do that. Go to netflix.com. I promise you, if you have not paid your bill, Netflix is very interested in helping you to solve that problem, but go to the website. Never go through the email. Here's another example. So it's saying that they're warning they're going to close and delete the account, and that's happening right now. Again, you'll notice sense of urgency. Okay, so first red flag. They have instructions to delete the account. So now there's some kind of threat of action. They're going to do it within 24 hours. Sense of urgency. Your account will be lost. Again, threat. They've provided you a link to cancel this request immediately. Again, you notice sense of urgency, sense of urgency. Okay, another red flag. Do not reply. Address, mail sent to this cannot be answered. But when we hover over the link, we see it goes to this weird bit.ly link. Well, if that really was from the University of Virginia's library, it probably wouldn't be a bit.ly link. So again, what you're looking for here is urgent threats. Anytime it's urgent or threatening, really is a big red flag. Here's another one. This is an Outlook one. So if you notice up here, it's outlook.team@outlook.com. So that security triple check, that's going to help you catch that. That's clearly a misspelling of Outlook. That is not the actual web address of Outlook. And then you see here, oh, we've blocked some email due to maintenance. You want to fix this. Click verify your account. But you notice when we hover over that, what we see is that it's going to some weird URL that is not associated with Microsoft. Okay? So again, it's threatening. We're going to shut something off. Here's another one. This is from university, right? Dear network user, your passwords are going to expire in 1 day. Click here to renew. So again, sense of urgency, something isn't quite right. You'll notice this is from my university. I don't think that's a real university. So, look at stuff, really look at it. Also, the generic dear network user, it's 2020. If you've legitimately done business with this company, they know your name. They're not going to refer to you as network user. Here's another one from Citicorp. This is from the bank. Please unlock your account. So again, you're starting to see a pattern here, right? The pattern is, we've blocked account access. You've lost access. Take action now to gain access. This is all phishing, known phishing. Here's another one from the National Security Department asking for FaceTime verification. Well, I dug into this and it turns out there is no National Security Department. There's a National Security Agency, but they're not going to send you email. If the NSA wants to talk to you, it's generally done in person when they pick you up in a van and take you to a dark room somewhere. Okay. So what are the most common types of scams? Financial fraud, tax and direct deposit redirect scams. This is where they attempt to get your HR department to change your direct deposit to an account that they have access to. Romance scams are very common. Extortion, very common. Charity scams, bail or family emergencies. And this is not the whole list. Actually, this deck needs a little bit of an update, right? We have COVID scams and testing scams and COVID medication scams. I could do an entire hour just on the scams we've seen in COVID. Matter of fact, since COVID started, we've seen a 6,000% increase in scams. So let's take look at a few more examples. You just won a $1,000 Amazon gift card. So two things jump out. It's unpersonalized phrasing. So it's reserved just for you, Facebook user. Okay, second red flag, urgency. You only have 4 minutes and 14 seconds. As much as I want to believe there's free money, I'm going to tell you guys right now, no free money. Nothing is free, period. No free lunch, no free money. I know that we think things are free because Snapchat and Facebook and LinkedIn and TikTok and all these things don't charge us money, but that's because they're using our data to create financial gain for themselves. So you are actually paying for it, and you're paying for it with your personal information. Okay, so if you see anything offering you free gift cards, just stop. Same thing with the Powerball. You didn't win it. I hate to break your heart. You didn't win the Powerball. Unless you have a paper ticket in your hand with the winning numbers, you did not win the Powerball. Here's another one. It's a tax refund. One of the ones we're seeing right now is around unemployment. So unemployment scams are really popular right now. As we get towards tax season, this year it's a little off because of the COVID, but as we get to tax season, every year, like clockwork, we start to see all these tax fraud scams. Again, here the big red flag is that there's a PDF attached. They want you to open and execute that PDF because it has ransomware or malware on it. Here's another one, threatening from the police, okay? The reason I'm taking time to teach all this to you is because this is the very things you need to be teaching to your students. This is the very things you need to know for yourselves. These scams exist, and the number one thing you can do is slow down and verify. Do that security triple check. One of the things that will be talked about a lot this year that we need to teach our kids about is misinformation. How to check the facts. Is that news story really a news story? Is that email really a legitimate email, or is it a scam? All of this is rooted in misinformation. And the number one thing you can do to protect against that is checking the facts, verifying, following up, calling the public number. Here's another FedEx one. And this one, it gets a lot of people because a lot of us are ordering a ton of things online. And, if our package doesn't show up or we get an email about our package, we may not think to pause and actually go directly to FedEx website and enter in that tracking number. Don't click the link in the email. Here's another one. So scams now come in many forms, not just email, text messages, and phone calls. And so here's a couple quick examples of a text scam where they were saying they're from the lottery board and they just need them to contact this number. Okay? No, again, you didn't win. I'm sorry. If you really won the lottery, they're not going to send you a text to tell you about it. That's not how that works. Here's another one. This one is a romance scam. So this is where somebody is chatting with someone in a romantic setting, and the individual is attempting to get them to engage so that they can eventually ask them for some kind of money, or send them a picture that has ransomware in it. Maybe they're trying to target the company the person works at, and so they're using a romance scam to get to them. This is also important because the children in your classroom, as they get to dating age, are also highly susceptible to these scams. And unfortunately, there are ugly people out there that are using these same techniques to try to groom the children into ugly things and trying to get them involved in human trafficking and other things. So that's why it's so important to know about this stuff and to take it serious and to share and talk about it. So here is a great example. This chat bot is saying, hey, can you do me a favor? Yeah, please buy iTunes cards at the nearest convenience store. Oh, hey, you still owe me money. Is it urgent? Well, I'll pay it all tomorrow. Right? No, I don't need to buy your iTunes cards. You can go to iTunes. You can go to apple.com. You can go to the gas station yourself. Anybody asks you to buy a gift card that doesn't live in your home, be highly suspect of it. And even if they do live in your home, maybe be suspect of it. Here's another one. Please, can you go to the store? Okay. Well, what do you mean? Well, I want a gift card. Well, why can't you go to the grocery store and get one? Oh, they're out of stock. There's so many red flags in here, but only if you know to slow down and see them. So why do you need me to go to Walgreens on your behalf? Why can't you go and buy your own gift card? Because this just doesn't make sense, right? And then they says, okay, a gift card, but for what store? Well, Walmart or Walgreens or CVS. Well, have you bought anything online before? Well, why do you ask? Because I can walk you through getting one online. No, I can't do that, and I'm currently out of money. So again, it's just red flag after red flag. Here is a good example of profiles. So profile scamming is where they change the profile to an attractive photo. But there's things that don't match, like where they live. It's incorrect details. The eye colors don't match the photo. And obviously this is not a real picture, but if it was, look at that stuff. Look and see if things match. They're only listed as 29, yet they're seeking older men. Well, I know there's a lot of old men out there that are going to be disappointed, but sorry guys, if she's in her 20s, probably not interested in you in your 50s. I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm just saying it's not the norm. The English is very poor, right? Well, if it's a university educated fluid English speaker, then the English shouldn't be poor. And then keeping all options open for the highest level of interest. So none of this is important. It doesn't seem right. It doesn't click. Another one they might attempt is to send you phony credentials. No, look, see, I'm Christopher. I work with the UN. You can trust me. Or maybe, hey, I'm with the Army and I'm stuck in Afghanistan, keeping this country safe. And boy, I could sure use some PlayStation gift cards. Okay. Here's another one. This is one of the COVID ones. Okay. You've been pre-accepted. Claim here. No free money. Can't stress that enough. Same thing with free trial of Netflix. Netflix does have a free trial. They do not text you about it. You can simply go to netflix.com and sign up for a free trial. So that's scams. Now I want to talk about the most important piece of technology in your home that you need to take time to secure. And this is important for you. This is important for your students as well. Mom and dad need to know this. Change the default password. The number one thing you can do is change the default password on your router. Most of you, if you have not done this, your password is admin, A-D-M-I-N. Your username is either admin or blank, and that accounts right there for about 40% of the routers in the market. So bad guys know this, and if you haven't changed that default password, it's very easy for them to get in, okay? Just like any other device in your home, Wi-Fi routers need to be updated. There is software that makes them work. That software needs updates, just like your cell phone, just like your laptop, or in my case, just like my Lego Mario. The other thing you're going to want to do is set up guest networks. Most modern routers now have a very easy way for you to create a guest network. I would encourage you to put your IoT or other hard to secure things that maybe you have the friends come over to visit, they need some internet access, put them on the guest network. This is going to keep their devices separate from your devices. And why this matters is, just like COVID, you don't know who's got what. And the best thing you can do to protect yourself is create distance, create physical distance. So the way you physically distance on the internet is by using separate networks, using a guest network and then your home network. The other big thing here is there are parental controls. There are a robust set of parental controls. Some of the newest routers come with settings to allow you to pause for dinner time, to shut all devices' internet access off at will. You can block certain content. You can block times of use. You can block just certain activities. For example, with my son when he was younger, we would allow him to use the internet for certain things, but if he wanted to do gaming, that was only allowed at certain times. So we would block the ability to play the Xbox. And it was very easy to do. You do not have to be highly technical to do this, but definitely use those controls. They'll protect your kids when you're not actively looking over their shoulder. The next thing is the smartphone and tablet. This is your next biggest risk at home. You need to have a PIN or a password. Okay, I recommend doing that over biometrics. I myself do use both. So I use biometrics, but I also use a PIN code. This is important because biometrics are not infallible. They can be fooled actually relatively easy. We're still very new with that technology. The other thing I'm going to encourage you to do is be very careful what you install. This is true on your devices, but also in your classrooms on your school devices. Be very, very careful about what apps you're installing. And if it's a free app, that is a yellow flag, because free means I'm trading something. And usually that something is my data. And if I'm in a classroom setting, I may not have the legal authority to trade the children's data for the use of this free app. So be very careful. If you don't know what that app does, if you don't know their data collection policy, I would encourage you, if you need it for your classroom, to go talk to IT and say, hey, can you please look at this for me? If you are using it for yourself and you install a calculator app that when you install it, it says, I need permissions to the camera and to your contacts and to your videos, you should be very concerned, because most likely that app is actually spyware. And while you get a calculator, you also give up a lot of things, like your personal photos, like your text messages, your intimate communications. So be very careful what you install. And if you're ever unsure, just don't install it. If you don't know for sure if it's safe to use, I would encourage you to think about not using it. The next thing is to check links. So smartphones are just computers, and they are also susceptible to ransomware. They are also susceptible to viruses and hacking and attacking. And so you need to be careful about the links that come through. Same advice I'll give you on a smartphone is the same advice I give you on a laptop. Type that stuff in. Check those links. There's several websites you can go to and actually look up the link to see if it's known to be associated with hackers. Simply Google safe link check. Okay? Same thing with the parental controls. If you have children using devices in your home, put those parental controls on those devices. The internet is a very dangerous place. If it was a real physical place, it would be the darkest, seediest alleyway in the world, and no one would go there. So we need to take appropriate precautions to monitor what our kids are doing online. And yes, we all have wonderful kids that would never do that, except statistics say that a percentage of us have wonderful kids that will do that. So we need to be very careful to set up appropriate parental controls. The other big thing, again, I go back to monitor your money. This is how you're going to know something's going on before it goes on. So check your financial statements monthly. You're looking for unusual or suspicious transactions. If you can, set up text alerts for purchases. I get a text anytime any money is spent. Use credit cards over debit cards because of what I mentioned earlier. They're legally different. And then if an account's no longer in use, close it. It's amazing how many times a closed account is actually used, or an account that is no longer used is hijacked and exploited. So close them if you don't need them. Do the security triple check, check the link, check the sender, check the request, and verify. And then lastly, just a couple remote life safety tips, because I know we're running right up on time and I want to leave time for Q&A. So if we're working at home, schooling at home, set boundaries, try to have a dedicated space in place. Be aware of what's in your background. A lot of us are giving away too much information with our web cameras. It's important to take breaks, step away from the technology for a little bit. It'll help keep you safe. If you don't know how to use it, if you don't know how to secure it, probably don't use it. This is true for any technology or software application. If you're unsure how to use it securely, you may want to consider not using it until you learn how. Trust and then verify. So any request for money, information, or taking action, verify those requests. Believe it or not, you need to still secure your devices when you're at home. Lock your computer when you're not in front of it. Curious kids and keyboard cats can cause lots of havoc. Unplug, get away, and most importantly, use HALT. If you are hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, probably don't want to make big life decisions. You may want to consider avoiding posting to social media. You may want to consider avoiding surfing the web. When you are any one of these things, hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, you are more likely to be the victim of cybercrime. So quick recap: secure your home network, limit access to your work devices, Always be careful what you're clicking on. Know what it does. Keep your devices up to date. Take the S2Me, and Nicole will cover that later this afternoon too. And with that, let's open it up for Q&A.
We got one question, someone asking about what parental control apps you would recommend.
So a lot of times I just use the built-in stuff that comes with the phones or the laptops. Anything built in the last 5 years has a really robust parental control set in it. If you want to take it a step further, in the United States of America, you are legally allowed to put surveillance software on your children's devices. You can do that up until the age of 18. On their 18th birthday, you need to uninstall that. Pro tip, do not do this on your spouse. It is a crime. But if you have a minor child, you are absolutely well within your rights. And there are a handful of products out there. I won't endorse any certain one, but I will suggest that a product made in the country of Israel may be the superior product in the marketplace. You'll have to kind of Google to figure that out.
And then we got another question from Bill. He's at East Central. Can you touch base on all the quizzes on Facebook and social media that are out there?
Yes. So one of the number 1 to number 2 tactics that the bad guys use, believe it or not, are all these quizzes and surveys, right? And they do it on Facebook and Insta and Snap and TikTok and you name it. And it's like, find out what author you are, right? And then you answer all these specific personality questions that allow them to learn so much about you to find out what author you might have been from the 1400s. So when it comes to that kind of stuff, I know it's fun, but you really need to ask yourself, am I volunteering too much information here? Do I really need to know whether I'm a pineapple or a biscuit or a banana? It floored me. My friend goes, "Oh, I'm taking my favorite, taking a survey to find out what my favorite color is." I said, "You don't know what your favorite color is. You already don't know this. You need a survey to tell you this." Or what color am I? That's another very popular one. Well, it will ask you things like, do you have children? Do you have pets? These types of questions. Well, the reason they're asking that is because almost always parents' passwords will have something to do with their children. Pet people's passwords will have something to do with the pets. And almost always I can find those answers on your public profile on Facebook or Insta. I can find the dog's name. I can find, what year your child was born. I can find, we've overshared, and so this stuff's out there. So be really careful about those surveys because almost always they're scammy in some way, shape, or form. They're either criminally scammy or they're marketing salesy scammy. Either way, it's best just to avoid, to be honest. That's how I do it.
Awesome. Anybody else have any other questions for Ryan before he ends?
Guys can ask me anything you ever wanted to ask a hacker.
And feel free to unmute your mic and speak.
Yeah, absolutely. Here for you guys.
Where do you store all of your passwords for computer?
I use LastPass with the exception of 2 passwords. There are 2 passwords I will not put in LastPass that only live inside my head. That is my main banking password. So that's the main password for my primary financial accounts. And it's the main password for my medical accounts. Those 2 I keep in my brain. Everything else I put in LastPass because everything else needs to be secure, but the reality is it's not going to completely destroy my life if they get access to that stuff. I can generally recover from it. But if they get a hold of my bank account, there goes my money. And if they get a hold of my health data, that could also potentially be weaponized. There's a lot of sensitive information that, I think we all want to keep safe. But LastPass for everything else, I've got it on my cell phone. I've got it in my browser. I love it. I will actually endorse their product because they work really hard to keep it secure. Nothing is 100% secure, but they work really hard to keep it as secure as they can.
I can second
Great, thank
that.
you.
Yeah, we use that as well at ECMEC, and I forced Mark and John, if you know them, they don't like, new things, and I forced them to use it here. So you too can use LastPass. It's easy.
And I would also add to that, make sure for any sensitive accounts, you set up multi-factor authentication. So that's where you get a text code or you have a separate app on the phone. I try not to use email as my second factor just because a lot of times that's also the primary factor. But having those text alerts has saved me so much headache and fraud, and just knowing that it was happening before it happened. In this house, given the job I do, we're probably on the phone with Discover Fraud Department at least every 60 days. Because people like to attack me because I try to help you guys be better and safer. What other questions do we have?
So someone said people recommend Google extensions, but it asks to approve data. Are Google extensions safe?
Depends on the extension. I wish I could give you a better answer, but there is, generally speaking, if it's made by Google, if it's made by Microsoft, it's a safe bet. But nothing is 100% safe, and those extensions also need to be kept up to date. So if you install an extension, be prepared that it's going to need to be updated, and that may be something you manually have to do. Not everything auto updates.
Are there some things that they can look at for specific extensions?
There's nothing really good out there today that I know of to say whether or not. Generally speaking, what I like to do is if it does ask for data, I say, okay, what does this extension do for me? And is the data it's asking for needed to make that extension function? And if the answer is no, then I usually back away. If it's asking for more than it needs to do what it's supposed to do. The same is true on my cell phone. If I install an app that starts asking for all these permissions and I'm like, but it's just, it's a calculator. Why would it need a camera? Why would it need contacts? Why would it need to control the phone calls? For me, that's when I back away. What other questions do we have? While you guys think of that, I'm going to put out in your ear something else that I didn't talk about, but I think is really important. And that is you have students who are curious, who know how to do what I know how to do. And they are going to try stuff, especially this year. They're at home, a lot of times unsupervised, and they are bored. So if you see a student who has a particular high talent for technology, make sure that you're working with your tech director to kind of keep an eye on that student. That student, the most tech savvy kid in the class is generally the one that's most likely to let their curiosity get the best of them. And the last thing you want to have to do is conduct a criminal investigation because a student didn't fully understand the impact of their actions, because they're a child, and so children just don't understand sometimes the full impact of their actions. And then the district has a ransomware event, and now you've had all this disruption. So if you notice that a kid's doing any kind of talking about hacking or whispering around about passwords or anything like that, that's the time to go to your tech director, get them involved. Get the, if you have a behavior person or whoever's responsible for intervening, get those individuals involved and have that conversation early on. There's been too many instances where I've gone into a school, they've brought me in to be a translator, and when mom and dad find out that they bought all the hacking equipment, they're floored. They say, wait, he said it was for the Wi-Fi. Well, it was for hacking somebody else's Wi-Fi, right? So it's just important to have that. And the same thing if you're the parent of a child. Intervene early so that they can become highly productive cybersecurity professionals that have a good career ahead of them. Because if we don't intervene early enough, that the dark side is it pays very well. So it's a slippery slope. And once they get into it, and a great example of this is the young man you see that was responsible for the Twitter hack. Okay, that's a 17-year-old kid. I guarantee you that was not the first time he hacked something. I guarantee you the very first time he hacked something, it was the district's network from the district-owned device, probably when he was 12. Any other questions?
I don't have anything out there. If anybody has anything else, speak now.
You guys can find me on Twitter at CloutierSec. Let's pop this up here. So that's the number one question, right? How do you protect your family from cybercrime? So that's my takeaway for you guys, is to really think about that. Hopefully today you learned a few tips and tricks, saw some stuff that maybe you hadn't seen before. You know, feel free to reach out to Nicole. I'm always available to talk about this stuff. This is my passion. This is what I do every day, all day long. And so anything I can do to help you guys, if questions come up later, don't hesitate to email. Nicole has my contact info. She'll be able to get you guys squared away. And then I assume the recording will be available of this. So if you know others that you think would have benefited from this information, please do share it with them. It is going to take all of us to keep the cyber criminals from ruining 2021.
Awesome. Thank you for your time, Ryan.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody.